don't know wrestling, this man has held 6 different belts. The only team to win all 3 major belts, the Crockett Cup. This man's a legend in his
How am I not going to like this guy, right? He knows everything.
Now,
Welcome to another edition of Hero Television. I'm your co-host, P.L. Myers. Johngy is off this month, off on getting ready for some interviews for us. So this is a one-on-one interview with the man himself, Mike McCann. Mike McCann is one of the original people that started Hero Television back at the Elmhurst YMCA. So started
way back in the day, about 20 years ago.
1996. So
Yes.
you're at 22 years.
Yeah, so back in the day when we were running the YMCA and you were working there, we wanted to do really ahead of our time. When you look at all the STEAM and STEM programming that are going on right now, we had our youth group, the Leaders Club at the Y at the time, and we wanted to teach them technology. And this was programming for kids that normally fell through the cracks of regular school programming. They were really into that, and they weren't offering stuff like this at school. So Paul and I got the kids involved with Comcast. We went through the training on all this equipment, although I would be pretty rusty on it these days. Paul's not so much. And we had our kids. We would film, and we would do our concerts and our teen festivals and things like that we've done. And I know when you throw it up, a lot of the old Y leaders kids like you on the Facebook page I've seen, so they're going to enjoy hearing about themselves right now.
And the thing is that this console has not changed in 22 years.
It totally looks the same, so I'm glad they're keeping up with the modern times here.
For the people that know you through Facebook, from the community, all the things that you've done, when you were growing up, did you know you wanted to get involved in the YMCA, working with seniors, working in a park district?
Sure. So the YMCA was my first real, job out of school, but I always felt called to help other people. It started back when I was, I would say, 5 years old, and I had chicken pox, and my dad brought home a Spider-Man comic, and I forgot the issue number, but it's where the Green Goblin kills Gwen Stacy. And that started my comic book collecting and into superheroes. That led me into mythology and studying the hero's journey, and Joseph Campbell and all of that. And those are all layers that I bring into the programming that I've done at each job and organization that I've had the honor to touch.
And it seemed like you've won so many different awards for all your contributions. What is it when you step back and see everything you've accomplished? What do you think of?
Sure. So it's always nice to be published. I've got books and journal articles and white journals and all that fun stuff. So I've had that. I've gotten awards. I led an organization to win a Community Impact Award. We won it like 4 out of the last 6 years or something. But that's not done to feed any ego. What that is used to sell a brand to then help generate funds and generate enthusiasm and get more eyes on you trying to help other people. I think if you're just out there chasing awards, chasing bylines, that fills a black hole that can never be filled, and you're never going to get anywhere, right? So it's a little disingenuous. So the awards and accolades are great, but it's really strategically done to help you propel your organization or your product to bring in fundraising or get more eyes on it.
Getting back to when you're growing up, and the name of the show is HeroTV. Yeah. Who were your heroes growing up?
Sure. Oh, that's a great question. So real life heroes would be, my dad would be for one. He passed away a little over 5 years ago from prostate cancer, and you knew him, so I mentioned that. So he would be, so for real life, he would be one. Martin Luther King would be one. Walter Payton would be one. And before scandals, Arnold Schwarzenegger was taking his name, and that's all he had, and building it into to what he was. Fictional, I have a lot of fictional heroes, and that goes back to King Arthur and Robin Hood. Obviously, I'm a huge pop culture geek and nerd, so when you think of superheroes, you think of Batman, Superman, Thor, the Avengers, all of them, and I've got a billion comic books that fill up the house that the family hates because they're tripping over them. And then, cinema-wise, things like Highlander, things like Lord of the Rings, obviously Star Wars, Indiana Jones. I'm a sucker for the hero's journey.
Well, don't tell me that Robin Hood's not real. Wait a second.
Well, actually, Robin Hood and King Arthur, there were real people. Even King Arthur was. There are legends of a Roman centurion that protected England. I'm going deep nerd here. That protected England from invaders. And when Rome pulled out, he and his knights stayed behind. And so that perpetuated the legends of King Arthur and his knights of the Round Table. So Robin Hood was a combination of different heroes into the legend of Robin Hood.
So I'm guessing all these, because of the pop culture becoming as popular as now. I mean, growing up, I think the teen program and everything that we did, like professional wrestling, we were kind of like the square pegs and trying to fit in the round hole. We were the land of the misfit toys.
That's right.
Now you have all these comic book conventions. One of the guys that have been on our show, Elliot Serrano, who writes for the Red Eye, he's been on our show. Huge. They call him King of the Geeks. With all these conventions, does it feel like finally people are be able to fit in, because people have been bullied for us in the past it was bully, but now they have these things that outlets to really show their side on it.
Yeah, I think and this you could even go in a whole political stance, but I think our younger generations are much more accepting of who you are. It's more out there, be who you want to be, accept who you are, whether if it's faith, different religion, different cultures, even different genders and what that might be. And I think the younger generation, the millennials, they get a real kind of a bad look at them, thinking that they're constantly miscommunicating or not in touch, or they're snowflakes and all that other garbage. Actually, what the millennials teaches us is that you can be accepting of all different people. In fact, if you have millennials on your job, that's actually a good thing, because they're the ones that had to deal with both parents working. So out of survival for the bullies and everything, they had to learn to get along with everybody, right? Those are people you want on your team when you get in the professional realm. So I think it's more accepting for that. Definitely, on the side note to your point, pop culture and comic books and superheroes, things that were deemed nerdy when we were growing up, are definitely more accepting now. And I would challenge you, what's the difference between fantasy football and Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yeah, it's the same concept.
So, well, one, you get to play with swords and dragons. I'd rather do that than dealing with the NFL, but that's me.
When you started working with the teens in Elmhurst till now, I mean, you've grown. You now have children. Mm-hmm. What was the biggest change that you've seen when you started with the YMCA till now with the teens, and how you've had to deal with them? Because, like, your Elmhurst has Coach Newton, who was my coach for York High School. Coach Newton, who just passed away, was not just for us a coach. He was a teacher. He was a philosopher. He was a hero. He was almost a second parent.
Sure.
For you, you've had to wear so many different hats. When you started out at the YMCA, it was like, oh, there's a cool older guy, Now but they confided in you, and now all the things that they've gone through. What's the biggest change that you've seen dealing with teens?
Well, I think, there's a lot in there, so let's unpack that. First of all, when you said for me being a parent, working with teens and youth really prepared me for having 3 kids now, 3 daughters, 2 teenagers and 1 4-year-old. So we're running the gamut on demographics on kids. And I think the secret to that is you just keep it real. You don't talk down to people. And that's why I was successful with youth and teens, is that we treated them as young adults, not as little children, that there were scary things out there in the world. And you can talk about those things, and you don't have to protect them and hide them from it, but you've got to educate and keep them up to speed so they're prepared for that type of thing. I think anybody that's a teacher, a coach, a youth worker, it's a huge responsibility. There is an ego to come in and say, hey, I'm a hero and I'm here to help you in your life. There's a little ego to that, just like there's ego to be a leader, right? But you have to do that with compassion and empathy, and a lot of times just be that listening ear. A lot of times teenagers are being talked to all the time, And sometimes as an adult, we just need to be quiet and listen. And if you hear what's going on in the country these days, that's not happening. A lot of talking by the kids, and the adults aren't listening, and maybe they should. Now, transitioning, because I've also had great success working with older adults. I am a firm believer, Paul, that the younger generation stands on the shoulders of the older generation, right? So think about that. The younger generation stands on the shoulders of the older generation. So intergenerational programming is critical, whether if it's at the YMCA, Park District, City Center, whatever it may be. When I described to you and I transitioned from the Y to working with senior communities or working with programs at park districts, I'll describe somebody for you, okay? You've got somebody, and I have a daughter off camera, so she's a teenager. You've got somebody here that friendships are super important to them. They want to feel like they have a voice. Every decision being made by them is by somebody that's older than them or at least in their 20s to 50s. They want to feel valued. They want to show that they have wisdom, and they want to show that they have importance to the world. Now, I just described a teenager. I just described an older adult, right? So when you bring seniors and teens together, there's a lot of power in that intergenerational programming. Both sides have their bodies and minds are changing rapidly, so all these things are out of their control. So it's all about helping them find control and find a path in their life.
When you have the seniors working with the teens and vice versa, do you see that this generation cares? Because it seems like, you know, with the cell phones and video games that are streaming 24/7, they're stuck
That's
in
all
there.
garbage.
But do you see them getting a disconnect sometime?
No. Think about this. When we were kids, and even when our parents were kids, you would go out of school and you'd jump on your phone and talk to your friends. And your parents would say to you, what could you possibly be talking about? You just saw them an hour ago at school. How is that any different than out of school you're texting? The technology's changed. Teenagers trying to connect with their peers has remained the same forever. Our parents were on the phone. The ones complaining about the kids today being disconnected were doing the same thing disconnected in their day, whether if it was a magazine as opposed to checking their Twitter feed, right? So, you know, I see teenagers out there very responsible. They get together with their friends. The world has changed. We have supercomputers in our pockets, and that is how communication's being done. Quick and fast, 24-hour news cycle. It's never going to go back. So for adults and older adults to say they're disconnected or they're not listening or not respecting, that's just not true. I've seen many teenagers that are super respectful and mature. I've seen a lot of older adults that are very immature, racist, and irresponsible. So it comes down to the person and how much responsibility they want to have in their life.
And the thing is, when you transition from the YMCA with the seniors, what was the reason why you went that direction? Because, you know, when you have the background of working with teens and the YMCA, and it's like now you go down this route. What drew you to that route?
Well, I went from YMCA to work for a park district. And then I was then working in the senior living industry for about 15 years. And now recently I'm back in the Parks and Recreation business as the director of the Sandwich Park District, and I'm super happy there. Just like anything, there's always somebody to help, but your own career path, and I know you've had multiple hats and multiple careers, and we all have multiple passions, and that doesn't end when you're 20 or you're 90. Right? If you're leading a life of wellness and happiness, you're going to constantly want new things. You don't want to fall in this paradigm of the same old your whole life. So you want to keep yourself challenged. And when you're not challenged, you're going to seek other opportunities for adventure.
And knowing you for so long, for 20 plus, probably almost 30 years, knowing you that long, what keeps you motivated? Because, you know, when we talk to you off camera and on camera, you can see you're a very passionate person, you're a very motivated person, but what keeps you motivated?
Well, everything I do is for my family first and foremost, and trying to get them in the best position that they could possibly be in. But at the end of the day, you know, people will say, like in an interview, you're interviewing somebody in an executive position, what keeps you up at night? And, you know, some boring exec is going to be like, well, the budget or the numbers and blah, blah, blah. For me, what keeps me up at night is, did I help somebody today? If I help somebody today, if I made things better just a little bit today than it was yesterday, then that means I'm fulfilling the mission of the organization or my own personal mission. If I'm fulfilling the mission, then numbers, budget, everything else is going to fall into place. But when you start scrambling and you start panicking, you start cutting training, you start only looking at numbers only and living and dying by that and not just using it as only a tool, that's when things decline and things get stripped away. And you've seen nonprofits in Elmhurst that only focus on that number and they're only focused on the day-to-day without strategically planning, and they fall to the wayside, right?
Wow. That is great insight. We'll be right back with more of Hero Television. I was spending the half hour with the man himself, Mike McCann. We'll be right back with more of Hero TV.
This is Pastor Freddie, and you're watching Hero TV.
We're back on Hero Television. We're spending time with Mike McCann, the new director of the Park District for Sandwich.
Illinois. I don't know if you knew that, but Sandwich, Illinois, it's a rural community just at the end of the Chicagoland suburbs. So it's great. It's where the oldest community county fair is at. And there's a lot of places for good sandwiches, would be the joke. But it's a great park district, great people out there, and it's out by Sugar Grove, Plano area.
Okay. What made you go that route? Because I know you run so many different things, but what was the key to draw you to that?
Well, it's a smaller community, which I love because it's a struggle. It means the people that are there are passionate. They're not there for a paycheck. You have to wear multiple hats. So not only am I working with boards and strategically planning and thinking of the future, but yesterday I'm running a flag football program. So I'm still working with kids, working with older adults, get my hands dirty kind of a thing, which I love to do. It keeps your energy up and it keeps you connected with the people. But because they have limited resources compared to, say, a big community like Elmhurst, every struggle, every victory is that much sweeter because you're really planning for that. There's not this bottomless tax bracket that you can say, well, we're going to put an addition on Courts Plus and refurbish the tennis courts because it needs it. We actually have to go through a capital campaign to do that. So it's a lot of connecting and collaboration and building relationships on life enrichment. And I love the life enrichment. When you say, why is it so important? It's not just sports and athletics or dimensions of wellness. So when you think of like a kid on a playground, what's going on there? Not only are they building strength and coordination and all that, but that playground is just exploding their imagination. That playground's their castle. That playground's their Millennium Falcon, and they're having adventures on there, right? So you're giving them the tool to help them be the strongest version of themselves. And I think that's what I've always tried to do, is help people be that strongest version of themselves.
From a business standpoint, what's the biggest change that you've seen from when your days with the YMCA to now working with the Park District? What's the biggest change in that field you've seen?
Well, fundraising is becoming more and more difficult. It's harder to get more pieces of the pie. There's more projects that are in need, and there's more people in need looking for scholarships. And so you've got more competition now. So you've got libraries running programs that a park district should be running because the library's trying to stay relevant with all the downloading and streaming that's going on. You've got the YMCA and park districts competing with each other. Then you have independent leagues like an independent wrestling league or a softball league competing for field space. So everybody thinks they can do it better than the park district or the YMCA, and so they're all fighting for time and dollars.
And because you've been so successful from knowing you till now, and also now, what advice do you give to someone that wants to get into, park districts or the YMCA or get into your job?
Sure. You don't necessarily have to have an athletic background. You can start in childcare, you can start in athletics, you can start in fitness, you can start in conservation. But follow your passion and see where it takes you. Keep pushing yourself from an education point of view. Always sharpen your sword, never go into battle with dull implements, meaning your own training. And don't give up. If it's really something you want to do, you got to keep hunting for that I've always had the philosophy of being the wolf on the hunt as opposed to the spider on the web waiting for things to happen. Go hunt and get it.
With all the time that you put in, what do you do for fun, or how do you relax? Because you're spending hours at the sandwich, putting all these different programs out. You have your children you're taking, doing all their different things. What do you do on your almost downtime, if there's any?
Downtime is with the kids and family. I like to stay high energy. But then there's times where I shut it off and I'll pop in Skyrim and play on the Xbox for a while. So that kind of, gets your imagination going, but I like to read. I love movies. We own probably about 5,000 different movies, so we're the biggest movie nerds you're ever going to find. So those type of things keep you fresh. Just being able to work hard and then playing hard too. It's important to find that time and life balance. It's critical.
When you do all these different speaking engagements, because your knowledge is so vast in so many different fields, it's not just like, I just know this one field, I know this and this and this. What's the main thing that they try to, because people want to say, hey, I want to get Mike McCann to be a speaker. What's the main thing that they're trying to get out of you for their audience?
Well, my biggest thing for my audience is what's the takeaway? So I just got a library just got me an email today, wanted to book me for a history of barbecue and grilling program. Yeah. I like to speak on things I'm passionate about, and do that. But then on a leadership point of view, I get booked around the country for doing keynote addresses at leadership conferences. So I love leadership, but I love the history of Halloween. And so I could sit here and talk to you about why do we carve pumpkins and why do we trick or treat. Those things fascinate me, and people want to understand that stuff. What's important to me is when I go and do a presentation, 2 or 3 weeks later, they're not going to remember Mike McCann, but they're going to remember content. So that's important, and I understand that. That's the game, right? So, am I giving them something that's relevant? Are there lessons learned? Because just going there speaking for an hour and a half is boring. So I make sure it's engaging. The audience is always participating. When I do leadership conferences, there's tremendous breakout groups and roundtable discussions just to keep people's minds growing and journaling and being creative.
And what's your goals in the next, because you're a very goal-oriented person, what's your goals in the next few years for maybe your business life and your personal life?
So personal life, it's one, I'm fighting kidney disease, so I'm struggling with that and defeating that. And then I've got the oldest, is she's going to college, so getting her ready, getting the middle kid ready for her career in the performing arts, and trying to succumb to our youngest daughter who runs the house. And then professionally, we've got a lot of projects at the Park District we're looking to do. I'm always looking for opportunities to go out and educate and speak with people, but we're just looking to grow, add more programs and services to help people.
Well, I'm just so glad we were able to hook up and bring you on to the show that you helped create. It's not just me. It was Mike McCann's idea, because I remember sitting there because we're thinking of all the different ideas. One of our show was on Elmhurst Radio 88.7 WRSE. We did the pit, which was like the pit of really the knowledge of what we were trying to get from the teens.
And we were featuring teens in the area and local bands at the time at Elmhurst College. So that was a lot of fun.
And then we said, all right, we're going to bring this. They thought we were going to do this Howard Stern thing at the Elmhurst College. I said, no, we want to do these interviews. We started interviewing people that are in careers that people want to get involved in, and you and I came up with up here at HeroTV. So just wanted to thank you for your knowledge, and you're bringing this passion to it, and there's no better hero to talk about than Mike McCann, who's done so much.
Well, that's very nice. Thank you.
And we wish you nothing but success.
Wait a minute. We got together. We became really good friends because of wrestling. You're not going to ask me any wrestling questions?
Well, I'll be more happy to ask you wrestling questions. That's not a problem. All right. Good. Now we're going to shift a little to the wrestling question.
We're going to be wrestling nerds here for we haven't talked wrestling in a while. All right, we got WrestleManias in 2 weeks.
Well, all right. First of all, for the audience out there, who was your favorite wrestler growing up?
Macho Man Randy Savage, hands down. And then obviously we shared a passion with the Road Warriors, Ultimate Warrior, and Hulk Hogan.
Now, did you get to Toys R Us to buy the Randy Savage robe before it gets on clearance?
No, I have my Randy Savage bandana,
Okay.
the original still, and I've got his T-shirt, and I wear those around the house when the pay-per-views are on.
Growing up as a wrestling fan, did you ever get to meet any of the big name wrestlers?
Only when I was with you, so that was fun. We got to meet Hogan and Ted DiBiase. But, you know, you got into it where you got so deep that you had to be part of the show. And I started to feel bad because I know it's a work, but I still want to be able to go in and enjoy the, you know, the imagination of everything. And so then that's why you kind of went on your path. But, you know, when you befriended the Road Warriors and got involved in Special Olympics and everything because of them, it was tremendous. I mean, who would have thought that would have happened? You know, it's cool.
Well, and on top of it, most people growing up as a kid, I had the first poster from Rogel's Smoke Shop, was right near the YMCA. I rode down on my bike, got my first Road Warrior poster, actually have it signed by all three of them, and to actually meet Hawk at the Special Olympics, become friends with him, manage the Road Warriors back October 20th, 2001, get beat up by the Road Warriors. Then I did the 20-year anniversary for the Road Warriors, reuniting all three of them before Hawk passed away in 03, October 19th of enlarged heart, and actually spoke at his funeral for his family. So it comes full circle.
Absolutely.
But I think what do you think the state of wrestling is? When we were growing up, it was kind of like 1 to 2, 3 maybe companies. Now it's completely different. What's your take on it?
Well, yeah, you've got the juggernaut that's the WWE. It used to be WWF for those that, you know, aren't aware, back from the Hogan days, or even the Rock and Steve Austin days. I think the independents are doing really good, though. You got the Bullet Club, you got these folks, the All In show coming up in Chicago. You are part of the independent scene. So if you're smart, there's options for people wanting to go into pro wrestling. But my kids love the show. I love the show still. It's a great, you know, TV show about wrestling. And, you know, when it's great, it's really great. When it's bad, of course, it's bad. But I'm still a huge Triple H fan. And I'm rooting for probably John Cena against The Undertaker. And what else? I'm excited with Ronda Rousey crossing over. And I'll be rooting for Roman Reigns.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, every year it gets larger and bigger and bigger. I'm the type of guy to flip in the WrestleMania 1 because the passion from the ring announcers was so great. You just got hooked in.
I know. Yeah, we were huge CM Punk fans, and you know, sorry that didn't work out, and he's in UFC now. But you know, there's still characters there, and I like the character work. So the Woken Matt Hardy, love it. Can't get enough of it because it's so different. You know.
And he's definitely a good guy.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, you have been watching Hero Television. I've been your host, P.L. Myers, and this is the one, the only Mike McCann. And for more information, go to our Facebook page, and also we'll be streaming all these interviews on YouTube. So we'll see you next month on Hero TV.